and welcome to the third video, Food for Thought Philosophy. In this section I'll be covering A. The core, what is a person? The subject of personhood has been debated over for many years and is intrinsically linked to the question, what is a human being? And plays a very important role in answering said question. In IB, this subject, as part of the exploration of the core section, is studied in both standard and higher students. As a question on its own, it holds great importance in the regular world, especially in such debates as animal rights or abortion. In this video, I will discuss initial definitions of persons, the opinions of different philosophers on the issue of whether animals and machines could be persons, and I will be taking a look at some of the issues in the abortion debate from a philosophical standpoint. In Phaedrus, for example, Plato's definition of the soul lands reason as the highest faculty, and it could be said that reason is one of the most obvious characteristics of a human. Due to animals not possessing this faculty, we might say that they are not equivalent to humans in terms of rights. As for machines, Plato's ideas about humans depict them as infinitely complex and filled with irrational impulse, something which takes machines off the scoreboards, as the development of a machine with the ability to desire seems unlikely for the near future. Philosopher Thomas Aquinas was a Christian scholastic philosopher who argued that divine providence extended to all creatures, but the creatures of reason are of special significance. He argued that only the intellectual being is free, and in that attribute closer to God's own image. Through interpretation, Aquinas stated that animals existed solely for the benefit of humans, be it for food or clothing. He used this natural law argument, hierarchy clear to all naturally, to state that human beings were answerable only to God, whereas animals answered to humans. Aquinas would not, however, have been the highest supporter of machines that could be persons, as he stated that attempting to recreate or give life would be insulting to the Lord, and would therefore be wrong. He draws heavily from Aristotle's view on human life as morally free, which would be difficult or impossible to integrate into an artificial system, as to create one. He draws heavily from Aristotle's view of human life as morally free, which would be difficult or impossible to integrate into an artificial system, as to create one, the creator must program things. Immanuel Kant is another philosopher we can look at in an attempt to identify the possibility of personhood. He believed that every rational being exists as an end in themselves, and that the fact that a human being can use the representation of themselves, I, raises it infinitely above all other beings on the earth, and that in this way they are persons. Next, we'll look at the views of Christine Korsgaard and Tom Regan. Korsgaard argues that humans are the only creatures facing the problem of normativity, which is defined thusly: our reflective capacities allow us and require us to step back from our own mere impulses in order to determine when and whether to act on them. Our ability to reason, to step away from a situation and assess the consequences, brings us above the realm of animals, but places on us a responsibility to do what is right, making us moral creatures. She stated that while a lower animal's attention is fixed firmly on the world and what can be sensed or understood, humans can and do turn their attention onto their own perceptions, desires, and mental activities in such a way that we are conscious of them. On the other hand, Tom Regan argues that the differences between humans and animals should not be the priority, but rather similarities between humans and animals should be emphasized. As an example, he states that the ability to be an experiencing subject of a life and to have a concern for individual welfare regardless of external influences are shared. As part of the first of these, he states that the subjects of life want and prefer things, believe and feel things, recall and expect things. Korsgaard's rebuttal states that creatures without normative capabilities still share natural capabilities with persons, and that we do indeed have obligations to animals, as beings who can suffer are morally considerable, which can be seen when we encounter an animal suffering and we recognize their claim on us. Finally, Peter Singer, world-famous professor of bioethics at Princeton, argues that animals needn't be seen as equal to humans in order to deserve protection. Finally, Peter Singer, world-famous professor of bioethics at Princeton, argues that animals needn't be seen as equal to humans in order to deserve protection, which should be afforded to them for our shared ability to experience pain. He believes that we should promote pleasure and the avoidance of pain in all creatures. Finally, a quick dip in the abortion pool. The abortion debate refers to the controversy over the moral and legal status of abortion. Two main factors are to be considered in this moral issue, according to the philosopher Rosalind Hursthouse. Firstly, the status of the fetus, and therefore the possible justification of killing it, and women's rights, i.e. the individual woman's bodily rights, as well as the sexual emancipation and equality. Two main groups argue in this debate: the pro-choice movement, calling for women's rights and individual choice, and the pro-life movement, in favour of the fetus's rights, specifically their right to be born. Hursthouse argues that through the use of an ethical system called virtue ethics, which I'll talk about later, abortion can be said to be morally wrong, as it is, inevitably, cutting a life short, something a virtuous person would not do, which takes the fetus's questionable human status out of the equation. So, in conclusion, there are a great many set of ideas on this subject, but I personally identify with Peter Singer's theory that animals do not require equal status to humans to be afforded certain rights, though I would expand on this to set out more defined rules on the use, quote, of animals, specifically that they not be killed or harmed in any way unless it is fundamental to the continued living of a human being. In this way, while I outline human beings' importance, I conserve a protection of animals. On the topic of machines becoming persons, I cannot comment, as I do not know if the future holds that kind of technology for human beings. Anyway, join me on Saturday for the start of ethics and ethical systems. See you then.